Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Abitchonistim. IDSF is the leading Israeli organization advocating for strong national security to guide the state of Israel. Thank you, of course, to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing to allow us to bring you behind the headlines what is really happening in the war here in Israel. It's a great pleasure to be joined by the founder and chairman of IDSF, Brigadier General Amir Avivi. General, good to see you.
Hi, Moshe.
So there's a lot happening in this war, a lot of changes over the weekend. General, maybe we'll start with you just providing a general overview of what is happening right now.
Yeah, so one of the big news that is being discussed is that Division 98 that has fought for many months in Khan Yunis is retreating out of Khan Yunis. And of course, people are asking why is that? What is happening? Is the war over? What's going on? I can assure everybody the war is not over. We haven't stopped fighting. The reason why Division 98 is pulling out of Khan Yunis is because the Khan Yunis brigade has been destroyed. The remaining terrorists scattered. Leaving the soldiers inside Khan Yunis will only endanger them from sporadic attacks. We don't have any specific targets that we need to attack in Khan Yunis, so we're pulling out the division and they're going to change mode of operandi, meaning from attack to raids. Basically, they will pull out, we'll wait to see whether terrorists regroup in different places, and then if they do, in a certain area, immediately we launch an attack like we did in Shifa. This is exactly what happened in the northern part of Gaza. We finished the attack, we destroyed the battalions and the brigade, we pulled the forces out, we waited for the terrorists to regroup in a certain area. They did so in Shifa, and then we went in, surrounded them, killed 200 terrorists and apprehended 500. This is one reason why the division has pulled out. The second reason is we need to prepare the division for Rafah. The IDF has started preparing for the ground operation in Rafah. The forces already got their missions. We know which units are going where. They are training, getting ready. They have a timetable. Everything is moving towards the ground incursion. And when we'll go into Rafah, and really take it over, this will be the end of Hamas as a governmental and military entity. So one thing can delay that, although again, there is a timetable, everybody knows what they need to do, everybody is preparing. If there will be a hostage deal, obviously that might change the timetable. This is the moment where really, I'm saying it from Hamas side, they need to decide whether they're fighting making their last stand in Rafah, or buying some more time by a hostage deal. I think that they're supposed to understand that we're serious and we're going in. I don't know what Hamas will decide. I know that the delegation that went to the talks returned to Israel at the moment with no results. But having said that, I can say that the Minister of Defense announced that this is the right moment for a deal, and we're willing to, make some concessions and so on. So it seems like Israel is really trying to push a deal, trying maybe also to appease the administration and try to show that we're really doing everything we can, and also to the Israeli society that part of it is demonstrating, saying that the government is not really doing everything possible to return the hostages. So it's a bit of a moment where it's not unclear what will happen, whether there'll be hostages or Rafah. One thing I can say for sure, the war hasn't stopped. We are getting ready to attack in Rafah. While the forces in the south are getting ready for Rafah, there is a very high alert all over Israel with the air defense and other capabilities to deal with a possible attack from Iran, a retaliation following the alleged attack Israel did in Syria, where an Iranian general and some of its advisors were killed. Iranians are threatening a lot. This attack obviously hurt them, humiliated them, and they are saying all the time that they will conduct an attack. We also have an understanding that they are serious about that, but we don't know exactly what they're planning. And the IDF is getting ready in every way possible to deal with this. In Israel, the first 2 days, there was a bit of people were a bit hysterical. What will happen? What will they do? But at the moment, are just waiting to see what will happen. While this is going on, the units that are not in Gaza and are not preparing for Rafah are all preparing for Lebanon. There is massive training for the north. There are also talks on the government level about with the US about possible peace with Saudi Arabia and trying to move towards normalization. This is something the administration wants a lot before the elections. So it's something that we need to see how connected it is to Rafah and when Israel will go into Rafah. We saw a very big attempt of Iran to push weapons into Judea and Samaria. The IDF captured huge amount of weapons, very sophisticated, that were intended for the terror organizations in Judea and Samaria. So we see Iran also very active there. And we see also attempts to mobilize Israeli Arabs. We had a few terror attacks that were initiated by Israeli Arabs or Bedouins. So there is also a high alert inside Israel. I'm in close contact with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense. We're having discussions about these issues, trying to advise the best we can the leadership of Israel about what's the right thing to do. Moshe, I'm happy to answer questions.
General, thank you for sharing all of that. I think the first question is if we could just clarify on the Division 98 being removed from Gaza. We've been speaking for a long time about the need for an increase in a heavy display of troops in Gaza in order to get the job done. And now suddenly there's only one division left. So can you just explain that in more detail? How is removing troops from Gaza operationally what is necessary in order to complete the mission in destroying Rafah?
So when you conduct an attack, at a certain point of the attack, it really gets to a point where the attack is not effective anymore in the areas you attacked. At this stage, the best thing to do is to pull out, regroup, organize the forces, and initiate the attack again. So basically, this is what the IDF is doing. It's not that they took the 98 Division out of Gaza and that's it, they went away. No, they're on the Gazan border and they will operate inside Gaza all the time, doing raids. But Division 98 and 162, this is the two main divisions in the south at the moment. they are getting organized for the next step, and the next step is Rafah, and the next step is destroying the remaining battalion in the central camps. In the central camps, we destroyed 3 out of 4 battalions. We have 1 battalion left. We have the brigade of Rafah, and because the whole leadership of Hamas retreated into Rafah, the hostages, most of them are in Rafah. All the capability they have, they brought to Rafah. This is the decisive battle, and this decisive battle, before you go in, we need to organize the forces. We need to equip them. We need to take care of the APCs and the tanks. We need to give the soldiers a bit of rest. We need to debrief them. And following that, they'll go in and do the job. And also, one more thing that connects to the pulling out of Khan Yunis, we need to move the citizens, Palestinian citizens in Rafah to Khan Yunis, to evacuating Khan Yunis to enable the people to go to Khan Yunis. So when we go into Rafah, we don't need so many citizens. This is part of also the requirement of the US, who want to make sure that the minimum citizens collateral damage in this operation. So when they said that we need to move them north to Khan Yunis, of course, it's going to be done in a controlled way.
Now, the concern that Hamas terrorists will take control again of parts of Gaza, which were already cleaned up, are you able to compare the IDF's capacity to operate in Gaza now to, let's say, how they can operate in Judea and Samaria, in terms of how many troops are present and how they will maintain moving forward control, that Hamas doesn't retake what has already been taken in Gaza?
So if we take, for example, the beginning of the ground incursion in the north part of Gaza, when we had to conquer the area, fight battalions and find the brigade. So at the beginning, the fighting was very, very slow. It took us months to move forward and take control of the northern part of Gaza. Now, when we understood that there are hundreds of terrorists inside the hospital, it took us 10 minutes to cross all of the north of Gaza and take control of the Shifa hospital, surround it in no time. So this is control. This is what it means when the IDF says we are controlling the area. The ability of the IDF to move from place to place in no time and attack a certain place where we have very accurate intelligence that there are terrorists that have regrouped in this area. We need to, at this stage, they scattered. We don't have targets and we don't have intelligence. When we pull out, they will start regrouping, then we'll get intelligence again, and then we can attack them again. It's a process.
Now, the timing of this transition in Gaza is very suspect in terms of people believing that it's a result of U.S. pressure. Are you able to comment what you think about the connection between pressure from the U.S. and these changes in Gaza?
Well, I think that definitely it's a factor. I mean, always international pressure, especially from the U.S., and especially when we are in the need of munitions and assistance and having an umbrella in the UN Council. Of course, it's a factor that the Israeli government is taking in account. So on one hand, we're not going to stop the war and we're not going to lose. We are going to destroy Hamas. On the other hand, timetable, how much we really put our minds into the humanitarian aid without international pressure. Maybe humanitarian aid for Israel was not an issue. Not to the extent that we're dealing with this now. So definitely we are looking at the concerns of the US. We are explaining our position. But one thing Israel cannot play around with, this is the security. The lives of our soldiers, of our hostages, and of the people of the country. This is top priority. Even if we have a disagreement, we have to make sure that we do the right thing to defend the people.
The Hamas operatives, terrorists in Gaza right now, what is their perception? What's going through their mind when they are seeing the IDF withdrawing? Is it empowering them to build up again?
Well, maybe they are empowered, but for us it might, might work well, because if they don't take seriously and they think that we just withdrew, like happened in Shifa. In Shifa, they thought we're not going back. And we waited and let them go in. And then we killed 200 and arrested 500. I'm not worried really about what they think.
And in terms of a hostage deal, are we closer to a deal right now, or are we moving further away from a deal if there's less pressure, so to speak, on Hamas?
The more there will be military pressure, the more we'll be closer to a deal. So I would assume that if Hamas understand that Rafah is imminent, we're going in, maybe then there will be a deal. If not, then they won't be pressured. They might also, while we're operating in Rafah, they might ask for a deal. And then we'll see what we do.
Thank you to all of the viewers who are sending in questions and have sent in questions before this briefing. It's very helpful and allows us to really discuss what is on everyone's mind. General, are you able to discuss some of the tensions and changes that's happening in the Middle East at large, for example, in Jordan right now, some of the unrest that's occurring and how that could affect Israel?
Well, I don't think that Jordan is really affecting Israel now, but I think that the Jordanian government is really, really worried about the incitement. At the beginning, they were also helping the society being incited. Now they got scared because they saw that they're losing control of what is happening, and they saw that might backfire on them. So now the Jordanians are making arrests, they are trying to control what's going on. And also in Egypt, we see less rhetorics against Israel. We haven't heard anything from Jordan on Egypt against Israel because they are losing control of their own society.
And as they lose control of their own societies, what does that do for Iran and Saudi Arabia in the region? Does that empower them, or does that give them less support?
Well, the Iranians, on one hand, they feel empowered. They're sustaining a very long war against Israel. But the economy situation in Iran is terrible. And there are many, many people in Iran that are really attacking the Iranian government, saying that, instead of investing in Iran, they're investing in their fight against Israel. Also, the Iranians are being humiliated because we are all the time attacking their assets and killing people who are major people in Iran. So it's complicated. And I think that the Iranians are in a big dilemma if attack or not, because if they attack us from Iran, and this will give us the excuse to attack their nuclear sites, and they might pay a heavy price for this attack.
Now, after the airstrike in Syria, would you have expected Iran to retaliate sooner? And the fact that they have not done anything, is that a weakness that they don't have the capacity to do it? Or is this just part of the long game of Iran to take their time and decide how to react?
Iran always takes its time. It's part of the strategy. It's not easy to decide what to do exactly and when. And they're being very careful. And, we are monitoring very closely. We have very good intelligence on Iran, and they know that. They know that we know almost everything they do. So we'll see what happens.
General, thank you for giving all these answers. I'm going through the questions right now. There's really a very, very wide range of questions, but I guess we'll look at this issue of the post-war Gaza, meaning how far away are we potentially from the day after scenarios and really needing to have clarity on what will happen in Gaza, or are we still months to a year away from cleaning up Rafah, finishing off the job, and then even contemplating the day after scenarios?
The day after in Gaza is the day after Hamas. There is no day after before Hamas is gone. So we need to finish with Rafah. It will take time. We need to destroy the remaining forces in the central camps. And then we can talk about the day after. And there is not one day after. It's a process. To build an alternative leadership in Gaza, to de-radicalize them, to really see how we build local maybe leaderships. It will take time. It's not something that will happen fast. And also, I think that the moment that we destroy Hamas, the whole focus will be on Lebanon. And maybe we will have a war that is much bigger than Hamas. It's very hard to think about how we can avoid a war in Lebanon. So I'm not sure how much attention we'll give to Gaza when we'll have a war in Lebanon.
And would you say a lot of the emphasis right now in the IDF is preparing for Lebanon? That's the main focus now?
So there is a lot of preparations. We would like to see, a diplomatic solution that the world will pressure Hezbollah to retreat from South Lebanon. But for this, we need to win in Rafah, and for this, we need to have American leadership and willingness to put real power and threaten Iran and Hezbollah in order to push them north of the Litani. And at the moment, we don't see this leadership. And without it, we are destined to fight a big war.
So in the area of public diplomacy and the U.S. diplomacy, is there anything that can be expected, or is Israel on its own in terms of navigating the politics of Lebanon right now?
Well, I think that it's a common interest not to really have a full-scale war. But the question is, how do you really materialize this? How you make the U.S. really understand that they need to be strong to build a coalition? It's unclear because now the U.S. is going to elections, and I think the feeling is, just leave us alone. We want everything quiet. They want to forget that there is a Middle East and there is a problem and focus on the elections. But what can we do? The Middle East is not going anywhere. The Russians are here, the Chinese are here, all the radical Sunnis are here, and also all the radical Shias are here. And we have to deal with this. This is the reality.
Let's go back to Gaza for a second. The humanitarian crisis, the starvation, all of the issues that we're hearing about in Gaza. First of all, to what extent is what the reports coming out, are they true? Are they being manipulated by Hamas? Is there a food shortage? And is Israel doing enough, or what it should be doing, in order to solve the humanitarian issues in Gaza?
So Israel is bringing huge amount of humanitarian aid to Gaza. The issue is the distribution. Most of the time it's done okay and people are not starving or something like that. But on occasions, Hamas steals the food and then it's not distributed the way that everybody gets what they need. So this is mainly the problem. And anyway, Israel really is trying to bring all the humanitarian aid it needs in any way possible.
Thank you, General, for sharing all of this. We'll end off with one final question, which is the state of Israeli society. How are we doing here in Israel in terms of the Israeli citizens supporting this war effort and staying united together?
I think that most of the society is united. I think that the problem is that we have a certain group that really are focused. They want elections. They want it now. They're using any excuse they have to try to push it, whether it's the hostages or any other excuse. They're very well funded, but they represent, I think, a small part of the society. Most of the society is resolute and they want a win. What makes it hard for the society is not seeing the IDF pushing strong all the time. They want to see a decisive win fast. This is what I want to see. I think that when people will see the IDF going into Rafah, this will make everybody very happy.
Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. Thank you to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.